Okay, so as I mentioned, what I have is each of the chapters and then what's being taught in each chapter.
Okay.
It's pretty obvious, I guess, if you look at it, what each one is covering. Um, but I did figure out something. The two I have highlighted, mental health and coaching, they didn't have, that was not in the online version.
Oh.
Everything else is in the online version.
Mhm.
So I asked Karen, who is the person, is one of the coordinators, U.S. coordinator for Light, and she was going to investigate and get back with me. So I don't know. Mental health has just four sections, really three, and then coaching only has three sections as well. But when you get past the introduction, you got coaching tools and change. So tools are critical, change is critical, but other thing that's not listed here is motivation interviewing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard you talk about that several
Yeah,
times.
that's the missing element from the coaching piece. So anyway, I have not looked through the book yet to get all the particulars about coaching, but I mean they got the details here. So ideally, um, Rhonda and Mark can get together and kind of work through this and decide what needs to be a part of the 3 month training and what else needs to be finished in the year and how long what can it be finished in a year, probably, but with everything else, I don't know.
Gotcha.
So I had shared some information. I guess Milton shared some information with me and I shared some back with him. We exchanged information just around the medical missionary piece. And I thought of a couple of examples. Um, the question becomes, how does the medical missionary work really become the right arm of the gospel? And if just reflecting back on your life, do you mind giving me an example or two of how you have seen it actually work, where where the medical missionary part of this was used to open doors that otherwise would not have been open? Do you have any examples?
Um, hmm. I need to give that some thought, but I know over the years I've seen that there have definitely been instances where, where um the health message that, talking about health has been an avenue that otherwise would not normally have worked. Yeah, I can't really think of anything right off the cuff at the moment that, where that did make a difference.
Okay. Hey, Mark and Rhonda, how y'all doing?
Good morning to all.
Doing
Good
good.
morning.
Yeah, we're recording,
Okay.
and yeah. So I asked a question, and y'all can see the screen, right?
Yep.
Um,
Um, I asked Rupert a question, Mark and Rhonda, and the question was, give me an example where he's actually seeing the medical missionary work being used as a right arm of the gospel. Because at the end of the day, the Life Coach Network, while we initially talked about integrating or providing long-term support for lifestyle clients when they leave lifestyle centers, the other aspect of this is evangelism, right?
okay.
So with that being said, I asked Rupert if he would give me an example of two of where he's actually seen the medical missionary work used as the right arm of the gospel. And he gave me his answer, and that was he can, Rupert, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't want to go ahead and
No,
tip.
no, what I was saying is, I mean, over the years, I have, between just conversations with people and even, um, yeah, predominantly that's it. Just having conversations with people that started out about health, um, in business circles, particularly, that opened for more conversation that under normal circumstances would never have happened. And that has been, for me personally, I've seen that happen in many, many cases where I've been able to start conversations with people that generated to further my software engineer that we're working on, Mark, the project we're working on with you. Um,
Right.
that's how he and we met, and we were talking tech as usual, and he was like, um, because he used to come to my house pretty regularly we do a lot of our strategy and planning session on stuff we were doing. And he's like, I notice you only eat, the way you eat, and that started a conversation that actually led to Bible studies with him. And we were just talking the other day because of just being busy, the Bible studies are broken off. But he's like, man, I still practice. I still think about, the stuff that we've dealt with simply because of those conversations we had that started off about health and him working to try to eat healthier, and now he's got children, and he says that's it's just more of something that becomes more important for him.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of open it up a little bit to Mark and Rhonda, if y'all will share some experiences that you may have had over your years of service.
Doctor, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, so in doing many years of health evangelism and working with the programs that our church provides, generally over, like in the summertime, over a 2-week period. And we have people come in, we take their pre-intervention information, post-intervention information, and we generally see results within that short time frame of 2 weeks. But one of the things that I have found and pointed out um, to the conferences that I've worked with is that we really don't have good follow-up. And what I mean by follow-up, everyone is right there. You're getting the information, you see what's happening, and you're seeing the results of what's happening right at that moment. You see what happens at the end of the intervention. And many, many things like that have been done at places like UT Pines and Weimar. Typically in the organizations I've worked with, there's no data gathering, if you will, afterwards. And I come from a research perspective. My work is in research. And when you don't have post-intervention data, you really cannot get an accurate picture of if these people have really maintained the spiritual connection or emphasis perhaps that they experienced. And I worked within one conference for over 20 years. And until I did my master's degree, they had not collected information. We saw people come back year after year, results year after year after year after year. And I'm talking about since the 1970s. But until I did my master's and doctoral work, we had not really collected information, and we tried to provide a survey. But what happens with surveys, especially if they're on paper, you don't get good feedback. When I say good, they might forget, they might lose it. It's, any of these life experiences kind of prevent getting good information. Now that technology is as it is, I really think that we can do a better job in post-intervention collection via the phone and have people answer on the phone. I mean, some people can go to the computer, but many times in these interventions, they're older and they're a little bit, they don't feel comfortable in terms of being computer savvy, but something that has a quick question, and there are ways to make research questions where we can analyze the data. But I think that we need to really take a good hard look at how we are assessing what's happening afterwards and set up our programs such that we see evangelistic outcomes. I know that you have it on a small group basis. And I think that's one way of doing it, because in a small group, perhaps a leader can say, make sure that you answer the question sent, last Wednesday. We need to get that data in. So there is an encouragement from the coaching side. As you know, all of you have had experiences with coaching. You've got to keep people motivated to keep up with what you're asking. So I think in answering your question, part of the problem is how we look at what's happening afterwards, how we collect it. People are from New York, the Caribbean, California, who knows, they're from different places. So having maybe a phone app of some sort might help solve that problem.
Mark, didn't you have visions of a phone app at one point? That's still on your timeline, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. All right. So, if you will, Mark, give us your perspective or your experiences with health evangelism and the medical missionary work, how that has worked out practically.
Well, I agree with uh, with Rhonda. I mean, with Rhonda, that follow-up is a significant weak point of any health ministry, lifestyle center, health evangelism program that I have ever seen or been involved in. Probably who does the best would be the CHIP program. Um, they do pretty good at gathering data from individuals that have gone through their program and collecting that. But let me step back a little bit. When it comes to health ministry, there is I believe, a fundamental issue with our health ministry and health ministry approach, and it has been for many years. Um, and that is that we have compartmentalized health and spirituality
Mm, sure.
so that they are two separate things. And when we consider them to be two separate things, then we approach them as two separate things. And so you may have a health nugget before you have a prophecy seminar,
Right.
or you may have a health expo or a cooking school or a natural remedies class, and then you struggle to find appropriate ways or effective ways to tie that into some other doctrinal or spiritually based program that you can transition them to. And so there's a lot of individuals that are lost in the meantime because we compartmentalize. And that compartmentalization is quite problematic because we are a whole being. And our physical habits, our mental thoughts, our spiritual life, our beliefs, and so on all go together. They're not separate. And we have not done a good job of addressing everything together as a single unit. And I think when we finally understand that everything is a single unit and we address everything as a single unit, then we won't have this difficulty of trying to bridge one thing to another and so on, because all of it will be bridged together. All of it will come together as a single package, and we will be able to freely discuss spiritual issues and freely discuss health issues and freely discuss mental issues and freely discuss relationship issues. And all of those will just come out, and it'll come out freely because we'll recognize that all of it comes from the same, is part of the same thing. And if we approach it the right way, then that will be an automatic response that comes. But we have not approached it that way. And so we have difficulty in trying to tie it all together and bring it all together.
Amen. Amen. Thanks for those words. A couple examples, if I can do it briefly, is a challenge, but uh, I saw the need to integrate the right arm back into the body personally. And my first real foray in it was when we were at a small church in Prattville, Alabama, and Wednesday nights we did health talks before prayer meeting, and we had snacks and we did demonstrations and all kinds of stuff. We would create a small flyer, I think it was half page, and take it into community on Sabbath afternoons, knock on doors. Everybody was assigned a street, knock on doors, get familiar with the people, and invite them to the Wednesday night. Well, the success of that wasn't great, but it was great in other ways. Hence, on one occasion, we had one family come to the church on a Wednesday night that was from the community. There was history between the church and the community. Okay, it was a small church, small community, and the church had been there for years. I'm not going to go into the details there, but what came out of that experience for Anita and myself was lasting relationships with some of the people on our street that we canvassed. Those relationships have maintained. We started at church 2009, I think 2008, and we're still in contact with some of those individuals. As a matter of fact, one of the families, the husband is attending our Monday night men's Law of Life book club, and the wife just started with the new session. So that was a positive. Um, but to speak to what you just raised, Mark, is this. That same church did a health, hope, and healing that was organized by Dr. Thomas Jackson at Meek Ministry. They started out canvassing the neighborhood, all building to a health, hope, and healing, which had good attendance at a community center up the street from the church. Not at the church, but up the street from the church. Good attendance. Maybe it was a 2-week event. Followed up by a cooking class. Again, good attendance. But what you mentioned was there was this stovepipe or chimney pipe idea that everything was independent. We're just dealing with health at this point. The third phase was to do a Daniel Revelation seminar because the theme was Daniel, the Daniel diet. Okay, so that was the theme. So the evolutionary step in there was the Daniel Revelation seminar. But where the problem came was the same problem that we had at a different church that used the same used Meek Ministries approach. And here's the issue from my perspective, and y'all can jump on it and correct me if you like. When, in order to be an effective medical missionary, you kind of have to be bought into health reform. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
And if you're not bought into health reform, I'm talking about the church. Okay.
Mhm.
If the church is not bought into health reform and you now have a health evangelistic event, what happens?
Nothing good.
Well, the church does what the church does.
And you don't get the support. And we saw that happen twice. No, because the members in the church acknowledge a health message, but health reform and health message are totally different things, right? And if you're going to be a medical missionary, yes, you have bought into the to health reform. You embrace it.
Right.
That's a critical thing here. it's a big dot deal. Um, because there's two aspects of it from my perspective. The spiritual, let's just set that aside for just a second, but just dealing with the physical aspect of it. There's a right arm piece where I'm just using it to establish relationships. It's a tool on my evangelistic tool belt. And then there is the actual support of, hey, I'm trying to get my A1C down, or I'm trying to lose a few pounds, or I'm having trouble with this, whatever. And that's actually knowing natural remedies and understanding by God's grace or getting inspiration from the Holy Spirit and knowing what to apply. Two different things. One is providing support, and one is using it as a door opener to get your foot in the door. And by the way, one of those families that we established a long-term relationship, the wife cussed me out the first time well, maybe the second or third time I knocked on the door. Just flat out cursed. She didn't look me face to face. She was wandering around the house. She was in earshot distance of me. Her cousin was talking to me, and she cussed me up and down like she was a sailor. I'm like, oh my goodness. I've never really met this lady. I just been dropping flyers off at her door. But one Sabbath, Anita came with me. And Anita, doing what Anita does, looked in the backyard and noticed a pretty garden. And when the husband came to the door and she said, I see you have a garden in the backyard. Tell me about the garden. And his face lit up like a Christmas tree. And the relationship with that family began from that point forward. So it wasn't the health message took us there, but it was really just looking around, noticing what was going on. And my wife at the time had a very keen interest in gardening, and they had a great time. And that family has been in our lives since then. They call us every now and then. We stop by, visit. They used to come to our house and fish. So again, a lifelong relationship. Did we ever do Bible studies with them? No. Did they ever attend church with us? No. That part of the relationship has not really grown.
Mhm.
So a lot of other experiences from there because doing health evangelism has been our focus. And that opens us up to something else you said, Mark. As I was reading the Law of Life, what God showed me was this is a complete approach to the right arm because most of the people that attend our Sabbath gathering, most of them were involved with us on Monday nights in the Law of Life book club. I have a student that when I was teaching at the college level had health issues. After the semester ended, I reached out to her. Well, actually, during the semester, I said, look, you need to go to the doctor and get your circulation checked. What you're describing right now says you got some circulation issues. She went to the doctor. She had an appointment, the timing of God. She had an appointment that week already at the doctor. She went to the doctor. The doctor validated everything I said. She said, Mr. McGee, how did you know? How did you know? I need to know. She's since done Bible studies. She worships with us on Sabbath.
Mhm.
So that's the success story. That is the right arm doing what the right arm was supposed to do.
Amen.
We're not finished with her. We still got, as we are working through our issues, she's been through the Law of Life with us, but for her, it was a one and done. She needs to get back involved because the Law of Life, Rhonda, is not a one and done. And it is a simple, non-threatening approach to using the right arm to extend your hand and get that relationship going that can result in bigger and better things. Just my opinion, my experience. So anyway, we're here. And any questions or comments about what we've said so far before we transition to the next topic, which is staring us in the face? Questions, comments, thoughts, confirmation, affirmation. No? Okay. All right. So I sent Mark and Rhonda an email with these topics, and they were expanded so you could see the entire list of topics. The challenge here is this is supposed to be 150 hours of content, and this is Light's Health Evangelism program. There are two sections that are in the textbook that are not currently in the online course, and that's what I have highlighted, the mental health piece and the coaching piece. They were afterthoughts after the content was put together. Not a whole lot of detail here. Um, uh, you got the introduction, which is basically present in most all of them, but you also have, so with the mental health, you've got three pieces that are added: body, spirit, stress and anxiety, managing anxiety and depression. Then with coaching, you've only got coaching tools and change. As I mentioned to Rupert, motivational interviewing is a big part of coaching, and then the actual practicing of it, because it is not natural. It is, for a medical missionary, they would be very challenged as a coach, very challenged in the coach approach methodology that I learned. Because as a medical missionary, you direct, you give instruction, you direct, you direct, you direct. In coaching, you don't direct. The client takes the bull by the horns and leads you through the process. Well, the client, you it's a give and take. It's an ebb and flow between the client and the coach. The coach is not directing the discussion. So a medical missionary that is a coach basically is wearing two hats and they have to jump back and forth between the two. As we were taught in our coaching program, if I'm certified in something else, when I'm going to speak to that other thing that I'm certified in, may I maybe transition, I speak to you as a certified health evangelist. Okay, now I'm going to jump back into my lane as a health coach so that the client doesn't get confused about which is which, because there are two different methodologies. But anyway, just a side note, which is why we've got to kind of spend a little bit of time developing the coaching piece. But my point, I said all that to say, but you two, did y'all get a chance to look at the list of stuff? Um, any thoughts about
I'm
what's
still in the
good? What?
reviewing process.
Pardon me?
I'm still in the review process.
Okay. Is this sufficient detail? Do you? I mean, both of y'all have experiences. Mark, you medical director, UG Pines. Rhonda, you've run lifestyle centers or lifestyle programs. Did y'all have a chance to talk at all over email or otherwise?
Oh, we
No.
haven't.
Okay.
No, we haven't.
Rhonda, can you give just a brief intro so that Mark can have the context that I have about you?
Okay. So, Dr. Sandoval, I had a conversation with you several years ago when I was in Korea.
Okay.
And at that time, I don't know if you remember the conversation, but at that time, I was still there. And I had, I was, I knew I was coming home. So I have a master's degree in public health from Samyuk, which is our university over there. And I have a double major in natural remedies and health education. Prior to going to Korea, I had developed the fitness segment, or facilitated, it might be a better word, working with the Allegheny East Conference and Gwen Foster and the Fit for Life program, which is a 2-week summer retreat for people to come. And as I mentioned, we take pre-intervention information and then post-analysis. And we always saw results for over 40 years. We would see year after year after year of really rapid results in a matter of 2 weeks. Of course, they're on a plant-based diet, and everything in that case is controlled. So I worked with that program through the years. I also worked with Bristol Myers Squibb in pharmaceuticals for a number of years, which really prompted me to take a master's degree in natural remedies, because looking at what happens in how the body responds to manufactured medication, so much more can be done in the natural remedies. And so once I went to Korea, I lived there for 15 years. I still came home each summer and worked at Fit for You. And actually, I have a study published from Fit for You in the reduction of cardiovascular disease based on a 2-week plant-based program. You can find it online if you'd like to read it. And so I did my doctoral work there and followed up actually on looking at microbiota and the changes that would occur, again, based on a 2-week program, and saw significant changes in patterns and in other types of transcription related to that. Came home in 2018. I called you I think just before I came home, or right around 17, 18 in that point, because I was thinking about coming to a lifestyle center, and I can't remember, you worked at UG Pines, is it?
Yes.
Okay, that's where I think I associated you with there. And was there another doctor, a Vaughn? Is there another doctor?
In 2017, there would have been Adon Sanchez.
Okay, a Dr. Sanchez.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dr. Adon Sanchez, and then there would have been at that time, I think, 2 nurse practitioners, Cachet Ferguson and Dorothy Lewis.
I spoke with one of the nurse practitioners too.
Mhm.
So anyway, going back to what I'm saying, and then I did studies also at Weimar, a couple of their certifications in lifestyle health. But I think my big emphasis is research, because we do so much work in the alignment of our health message, and the research has not been as great. Of course, we have that life longevity program from that Weimar started some years ago, but we've got so much that happens just in our basic neighborhoods, but we don't see that. And so that was the emphasis for the research that I did. And so all of these things we studied as part of our public health program, our international public health program at SAMUC. And when I came home, I also worked, or collaborated with, would be a better word, an organization, Adventist organization, that wanted to do hydrotherapy online, but it seems as if that someone's parents got sick and it kind of fell apart. They may be online now, but I had not heard from them. So I was looking into teaching, at least participating as a therapist / consultant for hydrotherapy online, which, as I mentioned to Ben, I thought in some ways, it's a bit more difficult because you're looking at them online versus watching the whole process. But,
Right.
I mean, those are caveats that can be overcome. But I just think it's more practical from a coaching perspective. And I've been coaching health and lifestyle fitness for years, through all of these years that I've just mentioned to you. So, and have visited a couple of our centers, also the one that's in Wildwood, that's in Georgia. Went there, did a little bit of work there. So, and we also have a study pending now that we are sending to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, that we did with the Mountain View Conference, and looking at the results of a 2-week lifestyle program. Again, there was not a phone app or something to really follow up well with what's happening with these clients since that time, and that was done in 2022. But we have applied to present that information to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine later this year in November.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of gives you somewhat of an idea of where my work and emphasis is. And I have a very, very keen interest in microbiota because I really believe as we change the gut environment, it changes our ability to think, our ability to deal with mental health issues and chronic disease.
All right. All right. All right. All right. So, yeah, the more I heard you talk, Ron, the more excited I got about what you can bring to the team.
Amen.
I showed you I showed you the workflow last week, and a big part of that workflow was a follow-up research, the survey, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really excited about that. But the thing that's staring me in the face now is what does this training really need to look like? And in our time, we got a timeline that we're working toward, and I want to be ready to present something to OCI. I would like to go and tailgate with Mark at a general conference, but that's just for networking sake. But honestly, OCI is what I want to be able to launch or present to OCI to say, hey, here we have a solution that is at least two phase. Phase one is virtual. Phase two is as we get more boots on the ground. Hence, a medical missionary in every member is a medical missionary in every church. Uh, then we can have a face-to-face, in-person meeting or group for people wherever they leave lifestyle centers. But that's longer term. Short term, virtual. All right. And we can have several virtual groups going by time zone or whatever the case may be. So, anyhow, there's method to the madness, but we got to get, I think, the training piece down for each of the sections. I would have hoped, and I asked Mark this question a month or so back, and that was, let's just say for grins and giggles, we get launched and we're now outreaching to gather this tribe that we call health life coaches. What percentage do you think will come from um, lifestyle centers that have been trained? And he gave a number, but over time, he's explained and really justified why that number is what it is, because the longer that person is away from the lifestyle center and not having worked in the field, it might be challenging to reintegrate them into the process. But
Right.
I like the idea of 50% of the people already have medical missionary training, because that is probably the most difficult of the platforms or the areas to get trained in.
Right.
Simple church is easy. Um, but the challenge, I guess my aha moment this morning was the reason that health evangelism failed in those other two locations was because the church members had not embraced um, health reform. They accept that there's a health message. Oh, we're not going to eat pork, we're not going to eat shellfish, but it ends there, oftentimes.
Mhm.
And that is a stopping point, and that goes back to the 1800s, probably with Kellogg and the division between the health message and the church. That's my take on it. But anyhow, so how do we bridge that gap is the question. So you can't just start with the medical missionary piece. You really got to deal with the spiritual aspect of people. There's a quote in the Spirit of Prophecy, and Mark, you probably know exactly where it is, and then I'm not even going to quote it correctly now, but in essence, it says the diet which Adam consumed in his unfallen state is the best for man as we seek to regain that sinless state. And I don't think the word was sinless, but the diet that Adam consumed in his sinless state is the best for man as he seeks to regain that sinless state. And I think that's closer to what that is, and that's the reality. But if you don't think victory as an outcome of God's grace in your life is an objective, then you'll never seek through his grace by faith to attain that sinless state. You'll never do it. And therefore, health reform will never be an issue for you, never be a topic of discussion.
Mhm.
So what we're trying to do is fundamentally solve world hunger.
Woohoo.
I wanted to throw something in there real quick. That interaction I was telling you I had um, with my friend that's the software engineer. I was talking to him, and what I'd like for you guys to consider in the midst of what we're doing here also, and in particular, maybe Rhonda with some of your research, Dr. Mark with, having hands-on, what do we need? If you had anything that you could have as far as technology today, software, what would that look like? How would that help what you're doing? An app, anything like that.
Yeah, well, the what I had um what I had thought of doing as far as an app was concerned. Well, I guess on a couple of fronts. We're looking at developing a life restoration program, which is a weekly program that lasts a year, meet in person, facilitator led, covers the different topics that our camp meeting has been covering the last, well, 2 years. And we would need a database to go along with the website so that we could have facilitators that had their own password protected account, access to the materials of the database, and then a generation of um, questionnaires that would go out to the participants of their program. And then those questionnaires can be, automatically captured in the database, and then the database could be mined later in relation to, research and, whatever information. Since the program would be lasting for a year, we could collect data over a year's time period and then, potentially continue collecting information from users afterwards if they're willing to continue to, you know, fill in information from short questionnaires. But I would like to collect information in regards to, depression, anxiety, substance use, uh, overall um, markers of wellness, plus also relationship markers, and then work-based markers, so that we can look at a kind of a global picture of how individuals are doing when they come into the program, how that changes over time, what it looks like when they're at the end of the program, and then of course as they continue after that. And if people go through the program once, what does that look like? If they go through the program twice, what does that look like? And I also thought it would be nice to have an app where individuals could put their health information, their other things of that nature. They could interact with materials through the app, including um, book chapters, workbook activities, uh, the videos that would go along with the program, almost set it up kind of like a course as well. The app could collect data in regards to use, um, and then uh, the app could also collect, and it would need to be, it'd have to have security that was
HIPAA
HIPAA,
compliant.
HIPAA
Yeah.
compliant. But collecting information about the individual very thoroughly, because what I would really love is for quite a few users to really take and input pretty much all all of their life information, including relationships and breakups and divorces and deaths of loved ones and all of that kind of stuff, including their health and when their health challenges began and so on and so forth, so that the so that the app and every input would require them to put in a how old they were when it happened. And that way the program could put together a chronological timeline of their life history. And it would include a timeline of what's going on relationship wise, what's going on spiritual wise, what's going on
Hmm.
physically as well, so that we can now have information of what correlates between life events and health outcomes. And then, of course, it would be nice if the app could also provide it could provide social interactions for individuals so that there would be, kind of like different chat groups where individuals could, um, like if you've got individuals that are using it and their primary issue is health related, then you could have the health group. And then if one was primarily depression related, then they could have the depression group, and so on, where you could have a moderator and then a bunch of individuals participating, and also have it set up so that if they connect in with a coach, then they can give permission for the coach to access
That information. Yeah.
that information so that the coach can have access to that information to help them along the line. And then the coach can see how much of the material that they're consuming versus not, and encourage them along from that standpoint, and has a has access to the timeline history of their life and how things have happened, and so on, and then has a greater ability to understand where the individual is coming from, and then how to help them from there.
Yeah, see, that's what you yeah, just pretty much filled in all the blanks there because I'm like, if we can create something that we could use as far as the training is concerned, and customizing that process so that again, we're trying to make this as convenient as possible for these coaches that we're training and whatever their other specialties are, but then being able to tie them into what you just discussed, which now you have two different resources tied together to help bring about a better whole in the long term and ultimately give you a lot of data that we don't have access to today.
Right.
So that's what I was talking to him about, um, what that would look like. And basically, what he said, all he would need is to have that sketched out in some sort of a flow chart. And with that, he could develop it. We'll figure out how much it will cost. But once
Right.
that's done, developing it is not a problem. About 12 years or so ago, I developed something similar to that. Well, we started it, they wind up killing it three-quarters of the way through for Pathway to Health. We had
Mhm.
did something similar to that where we created an entire database so everybody that they were meeting, they could collect all this data, just pretty much what you just outlined. We had created some, and back then, I think we had spent like $35,000 at the time to do it. Today, it can be done a whole lot easier and cheaper because you can automate a whole lot of these processes with AI writing code for you. So it becomes a lot simpler. So I think with between Ben and you guys trying to figure out what this need to look like as quickly as we can,
Mhm.
I can start working on that end with him. He's committed. He loves the whole health idea thing and all that. And he's like, whatever I can do, we'll just, do it at cost and get it done.
Mhm.
So Rhonda, yeah, whatever input, anything that you would like to see from all of your research end that we can incorporate into this one platform, or it's two platforms that are tied together, something like that, the training on one side and then the database section on another side, we can make that work.
Well, you definitely want I don't know that all of it has to be separated. I think that the coaches do need a significant amount of information. As Dr. Mark was talking, I was thinking about environmental conditions. So, for example, in the groups that we worked with, we might have had some people from New York, from an inner city environment,
Gotcha.
versus someone who's from, let's say, West Virginia, where it's more like country or rural. And, we're teaching people, let's say something as simple as nutrition, how to eat nutritionally. But maybe in that inner city urban environment, you can't find an avocado. You can't find
And
certain
afford
things.
an avocado.
Well, you can't find some of the things that we're recommending. So our program needs to be customized in terms of meeting the needs of people where they are. People are probably not going to move from where they move from. So we need to look at those environmental factors and capture that in terms of our apps. That can be part of our demographic profile. But,
Amen.
that comes to mind. Also, barriers to success. So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. We had a lady come through our program, and she came through more than once by herself, once with her daughter, and she lost 20 some pounds. I mean, really did well, drinking water, getting good sleep at night. And when she went home, her husband said, "Sweetie, you look fabulous. I am so proud of you. I have a surprise for you. I have all of your favorite desserts in the kitchen on the counter." All of the work we had done, he
Down
had,
to
yes, in the kitchen. And, it's really hard to resist such things, especially when your partners are not with you. You have
Right.
many cases like that. Mothers who go home and the kids are eating Twinkies. And so, in looking, I'm saying all of that to look at barriers to success. And in that phone app, having a list of barriers where they can just check off, maybe this is my greatest barrier. And the coach can then work on that first. So, that's what I mean by customizing. It can be designed in such a way that we help people where they are. One of the other things I thought about as Dr. Mark was talking was about spiritual support, somehow identifying what they need in terms of spiritual support. The church sometimes just doesn't always get that, capture that, or maybe they're not even aware of what the person might need. And I don't think it needs to be separate. I really think that it needs to be holistic, because when it's holistic, it sticks more, it makes more sense, and it gives you the foundation to maintain it better. And also, the other thing, Dr. Mark was identifying that, you can put chat groups together, be it depression or anxiety or some other thing. For many people, there's a crossover. You've got depression, you've got anxiety, and you've got several other things. And so somehow within the context of our app, and this goes to coaching, identifying the most important or the most significant thing first, and then working through that, two, three, four, however that list, whatever that picture looks like for that person. But looking at that, and I have another segment that's near and dear to my heart. I have not mentioned this to Ben, but I am a sign language interpreter. I don't see any of our programs reaching out to the deaf. And it is a conviction of my heart. I know the Lord is putting this on me to really pull it together, because the word tells us that every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. And I speak Spanish too, but we reach out to the Spanish community, to the French community. We have these other communities we reach out to. We have our pastor, Pastor Jeff, but we have, one well-known, and Pastor Trexler, but I don't know if he's if he's working anymore. But we don't reach out in this area. And this is a population of people that need to hear the gospel. 2% of the deaf people in the United States have heard the gospel. And I don't see other entities. I don't, it could be, I don't know who's famous, Joel Osteen, or what's the lady's name? Joyce
Myers.
Yes. Having an interpreter is only having an interpreter. I'm talking about a program that meets the needs of the community. So I think it could.
Wow.
It's worth
Not
it.
even hadn't even considered that. That's awesome.
never thought about it.
Yeah, yeah, never thought about it. Hey, you guys see what's on the screen now?
Hmm.
Yes.
Tools that we're supposed to use within the coaching process. This matrix is supposed to be the cat's meow, where the physician comes up with their assessment, which is in the big box here, and they might also identify pieces here that help the coach deal with all of these items at the bottom, and that should look very familiar to us. Sleep and relaxation, okay, hence exercise and movement, nutrition, stress, relationships. So most of these are addressed in the 8 remedies, but not all, right? And the other piece that was also interesting, and this is helpful, this particular functional medicine timeline is where, and I think Rhonda, you were addressing this, where you look at an age and what was going on at that time in life, what symptoms you were experiencing, and that way you can start connecting the dots between, like, my blood pressure was elevated a year ago. When I went and had it checked 3 weeks ago, it was still at that same elevated level. So really what was going on in my life a year ago when I had a health screening that that caused my blood pressure to rise because my exercise level had changed, my diet hadn't changed, had my metabolic rate changed? Did I onboard more stress? Was I feeling some kind of way? Was I feeling ownership rather than being a steward? Those are kinds of things that I really need to look at. And I know I had a huge stressor to enter my life and I took it all personal. And that probably had everything to do with my blood pressure being elevated. Although that stressor is now out of my life, my blood pressure was still elevated, which made me look more at my diet, which has made a difference, huge difference. So again, the timeline has that advantage, and that's what you were speaking to, Mark, is being able to connect the dots. So we picked up a lot of great tools from the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, a lot of great tools. And I was really hoping to have a discussion with someone about these tools because what I see as we work with lifestyle guests, we need to have the physician that can go through and do this assessment here in the middle and say, okay, here it is, life coaches. This is what we're working with. This is our recommendation around sleep, exercise, nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. Now you work with the client to make it happen. And that's how this is supposed to work. But when working from an independent perspective, not attached to a physician or naturopath, then I kind of got to forge it myself, which is not the best outcome necessarily. But I think utilizing these tools, which is what you were in essence addressing, Mark, is we got to take these tools, the concepts of them, and incorporate it ourselves. I also see another element of, like, UG Pines has the counseling sheets.
Hmm.
Those are significant.
Right.
But then take it to the next step, which being health tries to do, but that is connecting the spiritual situation, whether it is lack of trust, whether it's fear, whether it's control, whether it's bad attitude, whatever it is, attaching that to the disease, attaching that also to the scripture that help you deal with it, or the
Hmm.
spirit that's behind it, because that's what you and Dr. Mueller, that's the conclusion y'all came to in your practice. You got to get to the spiritual, to the sin manifestation behind the item in order for the natural remedy to be effective.
Right.
So the database also has to make that connection.
Right.
It has to.
Are
And,
there
and
not enough practitioners that are on this same wavelength? It could be a PA, but that could be part of this.
to ask that question again, I think I missed the first part of it.
Um,
Are there not enough practitioners, doctors, PAs, others that are on the same wavelength of thinking within the context of our faith or, otherwise, but understand that connection.
It'd have to
And
be from lifestyle centers that have, I would assume most lifestyle centers have a physician on staff, whether they are internist or whatever the case may be. Some may do better and some may not do quite as well. Maybe a naturopath, but that is something we need to assess because I think the one of the challenges with, from my perspective, with some medical missionaries is they don't have the ability to diagnose. And you gotta have a diagnosis to start out with because you can be given the wrong remedy and not considering um, the contraindicators.
when you don't have a full picture of the person's health.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, well, the app has the possibility of capturing, um, a bit of that. If it's going to be HIPAA protected, then there can be fields for putting in what medications that they're taking and what
Mhm.
conditions have they been diagnosed with, what symptoms do they have, and things of that nature, so that the life coach or whoever they're dealing with a what the patient or what the individual has specified is their condition. So, I mean, a life coach is never going to have they might have the know-how, but they're not going to have the legal ability to diagnose.
Diagnose, right.
Um, but oftentimes an individual comes to the lifestyle center with existing diagnoses. But there
Hmm.
are cases where, they come
No
in, they don't
diagnoses.
have a diagnosis. They've got symptoms and and then we've got to try to work with them and figure it out.
And see, when
Uh,
my wife went to UC Pines, she did not at that point have a diagnosis.
mhm,
And it makes it very challenging. And I've seen people not have diagnoses and they treat the wrong thing.
mhm, right,
And in some cases, their situation gets worse and
right.
worse and worse. So, I was about to say something funny while I was waiting for Rupert to get back. So, Rupert, technology-wise, what we need is a tricorder.
Okay. It took me a second. Okay.
You slow, bro. You're real slow. So that's what we need
Oh,
is
mercy.
we
I'm
need
like
good
tricorder.
technology where we
Yes.
can scan your body and know
Yes.
exactly what the deal is.
Oh, mercy. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm
Mm.
just
That
saying.
would be nice. That would be nice.
You're talking about Star Trek, aren't you?
Team mute, Scotty.
Yeah, exactly.
It took you a minute, Rhonda, to
Exactly.
catch what I
Took all a
was
minute. Took a minute.
saying.
Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, the next best thing is an extremely well adaptive database that all symptoms, everything is in there that can be researched and tied together, and of course, ultimately, making the doctor his job a lot easier to make the diagnosis because we can collect as much data as possible, and particularly since we're a lot of this interactivity can be remote in a lot of cases, we've got to be able to collect as much data on site and then having somebody remotely. That's where some time ago I was talking about incorporating some sort of a telemedicine into what we're doing. So that way, for those that are not life-threatening but need some assistance, data collection and being able to use that data, some visual aspect tied to that could help in that process.
amen. So guys, this is exciting. We've hit our hour and I'd like to stay within that hour time frame, but um somehow, sometime. Oh, by the way, Mark, the three of us are supposed to be at the camp meeting. I think Rhonda has registered. Rhonda, have you registered?
I have not registered yet,
Okay.
but Crystal said that I needed to register.
Okay.
I'm registered.
Okay. So Rupert is registered. They're all staying with Anita and I.
Mhm.
So we're gonna gang up on you, bro. I'm
Praise the
Yes.
Lord. Hallelujah.
I'm
Yes.
just saying we're gonna gang up on you.
I'm
And
driving cross
thank you
country.
for responding to Sharon quickly yesterday because that's going to be an interesting scenario. I am so excited for Sharon. Sharon is one of our people that is a part of Simple Church, but started attending Law of Life Book Club on Monday nights, and she's finally got the courage to start her own Law of Life. She's a nurse. She and her husband are both nurses, and she's also a coaching nurse. She'll do fine, but she's nervous. She's more introverted than extroverted as myself. So it'll be good for her.
Right.
But
Okay,
anyway,
guys. I got to drop off. I got to head to town. I got a meeting.
yeah, yeah, gotcha. So,
Mark, if you get a minute when you're done, call me on the road. I got a couple quick questions for you.
Okay.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later.
all right,
All
Rupert,
right.
thanks. All right, so in closing, Mark, Rhonda, how can y'all collaborate on this health training piece?
Time.
Dr.
Time.
Sandoval, can I get your number?
Yeah, it's 334
334
520
520
6383.
6383. I'm going to read it back to you. 334 520 6383.
Correct.
Okay, great.
All right, so what I'm trying to understand is, do I need to purchase another copy of the book from Karen so that you can have the details, or will the outline be sufficient?
I should probably be able to work with the outline, but I got home late last night and I've been on the road for the last almost 2 weeks and busy. I haven't had time.
And it doesn't get any better, sir. You've got
Oh,
a big
coffee is
event
coming up.
starting in 3 weeks, so
Yes, and I have about six or so presentations to put together in those 3 weeks, plus counseling time, plus yada yada yada.
gotcha. All right, so I'm going to get out of your hair, and but just you two, if y'all can get together and kind of get this going, and I get the other team of folks working with me on the coaching piece, and we'll work it out.
Yeah.
Okay. If I can be of assistance, please let me know. Dr. Sandoval, what's a good time to reach you? Oh, is that a funny question? Okay.
Um, Probably the best time is on a Sunday, but
Okay.
even then I'll be deep into presentation preparation. Um, just depends on the day. Just
Okay.
Fridays usually, Friday and Sunday tend to have a little bit more availability. Um, some of the other days, like Tuesday, I'm counseling all day long. Wednesday, I'm counseling half of the day. Thursday, I tend to have meetings in the mornings. I've got Monday evening group session, plus sometimes some other meetings on Monday evenings, Monday afternoon. Um,
That sounds pretty tight. We're running a